All right, I want to break down weight loss. I've taken a couple of different perspectives on it. Check out some of my videos talking about strategies to lose weight and my opinion on it. Of course, it's an interesting time to talk about weight loss with all the new medications out there, everybody running to get them, and everyone thinking it's the right fit for them. But there's something we need to talk about first, and that's your HPA Axis. It's a very important acronym for all of us to understand and learn. And I would say this is true for men and women, not just for women. The HPA Axis is talking about the link, the bidirectional link between your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and your adrenals. Hypothalamus and pituitary kind of sit together in sort of a linked up relationship right in the brain, while your adrenals are sitting right here on the top often of your kidneys. Now, the relationship between these three key organs, they're communicating, they're talking to each other, and then they get to decide what happens to your hormones. Here's the challenge. When we're not sleeping, when we're not eating, when we're stressed or we have a ton of trauma, that HPA axis is completely disrupted, and it shows up as a lot of different patterns, most of which impact blood sugar and insulin, causing us to gain weight. Every now and then there's a pattern that makes us lose excessive amounts of weight, but usually it's causing us to gain weight. Let me give you an example. The hypothalamus sits in the brain. When people have experienced severe stress or a lot of trauma or have an eating disorder, whatever it is, the hypothalamus actually gets inflamed. In fact, they can see it on images nowadays, where this area of the brain is inflamed, it's lit up, and it's impacting the rest of the HPA axis. Well, when that hypothalamus gets inflamed, you show up as having high inflammation on blood work, so a high CRP, a high SED rate. CRP, by the way, is C-reactive protein. A high SED rate, which is ESR, is the acronym that you'll see often on lab tests, or in a more subtle way, using numbers like TGF-beta or C4a. These high inflammation markers, in turn, really trigger dysfunction in thyroid levels, estrogen levels, progesterone levels, cortisol, and insulin. So all this inflammation sitting up here is causing everybody to go nuts. It's almost like a war where someone, turns on an alarm bell and everyone starts running, but they're kind of running nowhere. What do you need to do? Well, there are a couple of things. We've got to calm the inflammation down. And we tone down inflammation in a number of different ways. Now, as I've done this longer and longer, right, 15 years working in the integrative and holistic medicine space and working with all kinds of clients, we've had over probably 40,000 at this point come through our doors, we understand that inflammation, maybe the first place to begin, is really to begin with deep and consistent sleep. So correcting your sleep cycle helps to bring cortisol down, which in turn helps to regulate blood sugar, which takes down some of the inflammatory response around that hypothalamus. And as that response calms down, a hormone called TRH then starts to work a little bit better, helping your thyroid to be more metabolically active and helping to shut down leptin, which is the hormone that is secreted by fat cells. I talk a lot about leptin in this particular episode, or if you've been listening to the podcast, we've done some episodes on leptin in the past. So we want to tone the inflammation down. We want to get deep, consistent sleep. Your next step is to remove inflammatory foods. We're trying to get this HPA axis to heal on its own before we dump a lot of medications or supplements or hormones on it. So removing foods that really irritate the digestive system, gluten, dairy, sugar, alcohol, you guys know these, we've talked about them before, that can make a difference in toning down hypothalamic inflammation. And as that inflammation improves, we start to see things normalize. We see blood sugar normalize, we see insulin normalize, and the next thing you know, you're actually starting to lose weight. So the HPA axis is so important in the conversation around weight loss, because no matter what you do in terms of eating, exercising, any sort of weight loss plan, if we're not paying attention to this fundamental relationship, then you are not going to be able to lose weight permanently for the long haul. All right, so we've talked about the hypothalamic inflammation that takes place. What about the pituitary and what about the adrenals? So one of the things we know with the pituitary is working with the hypothalamus to secrete signals for the rest of the organs to produce their hormones. So again, if we're getting a lot of blue light, if we're being exposed to a lot of environmental toxins, then again, we are not able to allow the pituitary to do its job. so it becomes inflamed as well. So this whole area, kind of thinking of it as a circle sitting right behind maybe your third eye, this whole area is no longer able to signal the body, the hormones, and the messengers to really do what they need to do to make you more metabolically active. So inflammation, your hypothalamus, your pituitary, and then the last piece of the puzzle is the adrenals, which sit on top of the kidneys. They're responsible for cortisol production. And as the adrenals outpour cortisol in response to stress, blood sugar and insulin go up, and then you again start to gain weight. So how do we help support the adrenal glands? So now it's a question of getting protein in, getting our nutrients in, again, getting deep, consistent sleep, and maybe even adding in those adrenal adaptogens or mind-body techniques like acupuncture, yoga, or massage to bring cortisol levels down. Now, I talk a lot about adrenal fatigue in this video. Check that out right here. For those of you listening to the podcast, we've talked a lot about adrenal fatigue in the past and many different mind-body strategies that help you to lower your load of cortisol outpouring and to stabilize your adrenal fatigue. So the HPA axis is really important when we talk about weight loss. And if it is not given some support and we pursue a weight loss plan without thinking about this entire picture, oftentimes that's where weight loss is not successful. So remember, really adopting a holistic approach to weight loss where you're thinking about what's going on in the brain, what's going on in your organs, what's happening to the adrenals, and how those organs and those systems are influencing estrogen, progesterone, and thyroid helps us really piece together a good weight loss plan for you in the new year. After you have assessed and understood what your HPA axis is doing, your next step in a weight loss plan is probably hormone replacement. Getting in a little bit of supplemental thyroid hormone, maybe a little bit of progesterone. That also helps to support the adrenals and helps with the signaling to the hypothalamus, controlling leptin and many of the other hormones. All right, hopefully this puzzle piece makes sense. I'm going to leave you with a few visuals before I jump off. You have the HPA axis, brain to organ, secreting hormones, all communicating with each other. We've got fat cells communicating back up to that central HPA component, and in turn, if it's inflamed, starving yourself, over-exercising, fasting, all of this stuff is not going to work. You have to reduce inflammation, bring leptin down to a sweet spot, support the other hormones, and then think through what your next step will be when it comes to weight loss. All right, I hope you enjoyed and appreciated this holistic approach to losing weight. Remember, I post new videos every week. Don't forget to like and subscribe.